MS Ireland's mission is to enable and empower people affected by MS to live the life of their choice to their fullest potential. We're the only national organisation providing information, advocacy and support services to the MS community, and our services range as follows. So we provide individual and family support, we have living with MS programmes, exercise-based physiotherapy programmes, information and education sessions. We have a 12-bed respite facility here in Dublin that's utilised by people from all over the country. We engage in research and advocacy, and also, I suppose, like many other charities, we have a website, and we also engage in the various different social medias. So that's just to give you a flavour of who we are. So 25 years ago, if you were unlucky enough to be sitting in front of one of the many few neurologists that we would have had in this country at that time to get a diagnosis of MS, I'm afraid that you would have walked out of the room with not very much hope from that interaction. And I suppose that's because at most you would have been offered intravenous steroids and told to go home and rest. Now, thankfully, that world has significantly changed in those 25 years, and obviously the pharmaceutical industry and the introduction of disease-modifying therapies has certainly changed that conversation that is to be had between the neurologist and the person with multiple sclerosis. I'd like to start with an example of innovation and partnership that doesn't actually involve the pharmaceutical industry, but I think it's an interesting one to talk about. Because actually it was, I suppose it was this 25 years ago again, if you were to go back to that interaction with the neurologist, he or she would have also said to you, not to exercise, it would have been to go home and rest. And I suppose this is an example of some of the previous discussions earlier about research and engagement in research and utilising the population that we all work to serve to try and find solutions to the everyday living with different conditions. And this Getting the Balance Right is an extensive research and partnership approach with MS Ireland, People with MS and the University of Limerick, and we developed Ireland's nationwide exercise-based health promotion and research programme for people with multiple sclerosis. The aim of the programme is to give people with MS the opportunity to access physiotherapy and exercise-related interventions at a pace and a place that is suitable for the person. But it's also an opportunity for us to profile the benefits of the intervention and also allow us to provide and advocate for people about better services for people with MS. So this research project actually came about because we won Tesco Charity of the Year at the time, and then the flagship Dormant Account funds matched the funding. So again, for me, it's a perfect example, I think, of the innovation, the partnership we're talking about today, engaging with all the different stakeholders you've all mentioned in the room at the various different presentations, but also at the heart of it is, for me, it's developing something that is actually of benefit to the people that, certainly from my perspective, I work to serve, which is people with MS, but this is for people with any condition that we could be talking about. So a pharma initiative then that was built out of that was when Merck Serono then sponsored a post in St James's Hospital, which was a co-located post where the person, the physio, worked with outpatient neurology services and inpatient services, but also then with our population in the MS Care Centre in Bushy Park. And again, because this physiotherapist was able to utilise the research and actually gather the information from the people that she was working with through the programmes, and then she was able to show afterwards the benefits that was shown clearly from people participating in these programmes, then that actual post was subsumed into the hospital budget and still now exists, and she also continues to provide an outreach service in our MS Care Centre. Also then we have to go back to the disease-modifying therapies, which were first and authorised in Ireland in 1995. Now, the continuous investment obviously by the pharmaceutical company into research and development has allowed for new and innovative medicines to come to the market at all time. Now, access to them is a different discussion, but it has allowed for them to be there for people, and these DMTs are a significant part of the process for a person with MS, not for all, but for people who choose to take them in the management of their quality of life. So I suppose we better be open and transparent about the relationship. So I took 2014, and as you can see in alphabetical order, we had a relationship with 6 pharmaceuticals in MS Ireland in 2014. And just to be open about it it was accounted for, apologies, 1.5% of my overall income. So I don't really feel that I need to stand here and prove to you that we are independent from the pharmaceutical industry. But I have to say it's a very interesting dialogue, because it's something that I have to be able to show to my own population, we'll say, because we would often, you know, people would often say to us, you're doing that now because the pharmaceutical company wanted, or they want to do whichever. Let's be very clear, MS Ireland follows our mission and what it is that we want to do for people with MS, and we do that in partnership. But I think obviously it is just important to show you some of the figures that go behind that. So again, to just continue then with some examples of partnerships that we've had with the pharmaceutical industry. This is the one that's actually going on at the moment, and it's currently a partnership with Novartis, and it's to complete a study on the societal costs of MS in Ireland. And as you can see, the aim of the study is to measure the total economic impact of MS on the person with MS, their care and society. This is a new study, and it will address an actual evident gap that we have at the moment on this topic. So again, something that we are hoping that we will be able to use as an advocacy tool from the point of view of advocating for services for people with MS. And again, if you look at it from a partnership perspective, we have access to people with MS. They're very active on the social media platforms. We can get several hundred people to participate in a study like this. Fortunately, I don't have access, or I don't have an economist working with me. But again, with partnership with Novartis, we have access to really high quality researchers, the economist, and we can make this study happen. And again, ultimately for me, it's about what's this study going to bring. It's not going to be on the shelf. It's not going to be in a lovely glossy document. It's around how are we going to use it to advocate for better services for people with MS. We've also then had another initiative. So again, this came out of the fact that people with MS wanted to speak to people with MS. Of course, they want to speak to health professionals, but they also wanted to hear about, you know, how does it feel to feel absolutely shattered on, you know, a Tuesday morning when you have to get up, take your kids to school and whatever it is, and all the other symptoms that were mentioned earlier. So I suppose this was another partnership approach with pharma, where we looked at having what's called an MSME blog now that we have on our site. And again, this allows people to engage and have conversations with themselves. We were thrilled obviously then that it was shortlisted. We didn't win, but we were shortlisted, which was very positive from our perspective. So again, just showing you the approach of ultimately the person with MS being at the centre of everything we do, but being able to partner with industry around projects. And again, this was a very new initiative for us. We hadn't engaged in this space before, and I have to say, certainly it has been one of the most interesting projects for us, and our own younger population are very, very interested in it. This is just to give you an example of engaging with pharmaceutical partners throughout Europe. So we're part of the European Multiple Sclerosis platform, and obviously nurses are a very important part of the daily care of people with MS. But an MS needs survey quite clearly showed that the level of nursing care around Europe was shockingly different in each of the European countries. So this was an opportunity to pull together a first MS nurse professional online course, and MS Ireland, in association with partners, brought that course here to Ireland, and it's now signed off by On Board Alternate. So again, an opportunity for people who are working in the community, in your local nursing home, in the hospitals, who don't necessarily want to have an MS qualification in full but want to learn more, they can go and do this project. So again, this project was solely funded from pharmaceutical sponsorship. We've done a whole other range of activities then. Again, Believe and Achieve is another project that was developed with the European Multiple Sclerosis platform. It creates work opportunities for young people with MS through partnerships with businesses across Europe. So this is a pilot project. There have been 14 people with MS, actually 14 in total by 2 partnerships from Novartis and Biogen. So again, an opportunity for us to introduce this European initiative into Ireland, and there's currently one person at the moment who's just been recruited here in Ireland under that project as well. And we've continued again with the support of pharma, having a number of Believe and Achieve young persons events that we run to try and engage with our younger population. Again, as Avril said, wouldn't be something that we would be able to do without the external support. So I suppose then we get down to some of the they're not thorny issues, but I suppose there's things that aren't working swimmingly beautiful and fabulous, and it's something that I mentioned earlier, and it's about access to treatments. So obviously we believe that people with MS should have access to the right treatment at the right time, and this may sound, I suppose, very basic demand, but I suppose it's not the reality for many people with MS in Ireland. And I suppose the development of this Access to Medicines campaign is a new departure for us, and it clearly draws on our role as an advocate and information brokers. But again, this campaign would not have been possible without the support of the MS in the UK and also pharmaceutical input. So again, you know, again you're seeing the importance of our relationships, but always focusing on whatever it is that we're developing is for the person with MS. This initiative has a specific focus on empowerment, so going back to what Ava was saying earlier, helping people with MS to become effective advocates, that they can access the clinically indicated and approved medicines that they actually require. We're drawing on experience of those people, unfortunately, that had to go out and campaign, and fortunately successfully, for getting access to the medicines that they actually require themselves. The handbook provides a how-to guide for people. It's very structured, it has an escalating approach. We have worked, we've consulted with all the pharmaceuticals around the product information in it, obviously. We had it independently reviewed then by a neurologist. So again, everybody working together to ensure that the person has the most amount of information that they need to make informed decisions. We of course recognise the pressures that funders and services managers have to deliver services with their limited resources. However, equally, we emphasise the obligation of the health system to be both equitable and responsible to the needs of the individuals. And we do realise that all care is a partnership. And we do hope that this campaign handbook will certainly assist with that. So the last thing that I did then was I went out and had a conversation with a few of our bloggers and people with MS before I came today, just to say what their thoughts was around me presenting at this conference, and their thoughts on, you know, engagement with pharmas and things like that. So I'd like to read you one or two of these. I just have 3 quotes. So this is a quote from one of our bloggers, which she actually did a blog on this issue a few weeks ago. So these days I feel like my opinion really matters to a lot of people. The other week, while checking out from a hotel, I was asked if there was anything that could have made my stay better. Even the back of the cornflakes box is asking me what I think about their product. I got to wondering why patients rarely seem to get asked their opinion in the medicines that they are prescribed. Besides making us feel like we have a voice, the effective recording of patient feedback could only help medicine research and development in their efforts to find more effective drugs faster. Like in a customer satisfaction survey, the things that are not working could be addressed and practical suggestions could be implemented. Sadly, this rarely happens. Now, I mean, this is fact. This is from people that we engage with, so I thought it was just important to represent what some of our own population would say. Isabelle Moulin spoke at the European conference that was held here last year in Dublin, and she spoke about how, since patients will be the ones taking these medicines, it makes absolute sense to incorporate their values and their knowledge at different stages throughout the long process of developing, assessing, licensing and monitoring medicines. And I think that's the most important bit for me, is the last line. You know, it was what you were saying earlier about people are consulted obviously in the clinical trials and all that kind of stuff, but our population really want to be consulted throughout the whole phase of their management of their condition, you know, and that's something that's coming across very clearly. It's around asking us, well, how am I living with the condition? How is it improving my quality of life? So that's obviously extremely important to people, and that's something that came through. So we have a Tuesday question on Facebook. So last Tuesday we just asked people, okay, well, look, what was their experience in clinical trials and any interactions with pharma. So, for example, Joan Jordan wrote, yes, I participated in a clinical trial for 3 years. I thought that it was a good thing to do, but felt very unempowered as a patient while I was on it. Now, I don't think anyone setting out certainly, you know, wants to set out to make that happen, to have a person with MS or any other condition to feel unempowered, but I suppose that's again her feeling and her sense of it. So her sense was the clinical trial was done to her as opposed to she was an active participant. So again, some insights from some people. Willica wrote about access to medicine should never be a lottery, or even worse, denied by the NCP HSE when the meds have proved their value to people with MS abroad. Granted, setting the price for meds is a complicated thing, but you cannot put a price on how cost effective someone could be if they were able to return to work. This really reflects the struggle a lot of people have had over the last number of months in relation to a particular drug that we still are awaiting the response from the HSE around whether they will support it or not. And I suppose a lot of our population were saying at the time, but is anyone listening to me, to the fact that I take this medication, I am now able to participate in society, I'm able to go back into the workforce, mind my children, I don't need a carer, I am not a burden on the state. Quote from our population, I'm not saying that about people, but that's what our own population are saying, and they want that voice to be heard. So again, it goes back to the points that we were making earlier around the importance of their voice being heard in all the decisions that are being made for them, about them. So that would be extremely important. So I suppose for me, in conclusion, I suppose the main thing to say really is a mechanism for people to hear their voices. And I want to use a quote actually, because Tommy, you started at the beginning, and it's my favourite quote, and I think you mentioned a little bit about it at the beginning, but I think it doesn't matter where we're all coming from. Okay, I work for a charity, some of you work for farmers, some of you have various different industry backgrounds or whichever, but for me it's all about do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. So that's me. Thanks very much.